of your command and your will. To be transformed by the word spoken in our lives and on our hearts. Lord, may you help us to be strengthened in our friendship and fellowship. May you help us to be strengthened in our love. Do this in spite of me or through me. For this we pray. Amen. So now we are in our third week of our study of the disciplines over Lent. Just a quick recap for those of you who don't remember. The first week was prayer. And last week we talked about meditation and gratitude. This week we move into fellowship. The discipline of kind of loving one another. And it may not seem like it's a discipline on the surface, the idea that we kind of go out of our way to love one another, but I think that if we're realistic, we have to admit that sometimes it does take a little bit of action, a little bit of discipline to actually love some of the people around us. That a lot of times with our friends it's really easy to love them, but even our closest friends sometimes challenge us and upset us, make it hard to act solely out of love and respect. And so in those times, I think that's when Jesus really calls us to this discipline, to this idea that even when we're not feeling it, we still need to love. Because love is not just an emotion. Love is actually a practice. And so this week, as I said, we're looking at the discipline of fellowship. We are called to fellowship by Jesus because Jesus tells us that it is by our love that they will know him. And the early Christians did this really well. They often ate every meal together, so they actually acted like they were a kind of a giant extended family. So they would often share things if anyone had a need of something and one of their other brothers and sisters in the church had it. It was freely given and borrowed and returned, and no one really worried about it. They often cared for each other's sick. So they were the first people to come up with the idea of hospitals, places where they would actually take care of the sick that were not their own immediate family members, but instead were people just in need. And they began to organize those kind of things. They began to organize schools as a way of helping each other learn and gain knowledge. And they did these things out of their love for each other. And we know that it was not always the most peaceful. That we can read Paul's letters and we can hear of the conflict that some of the early church faced, that the conflict over ideals and the right way of thinking and the right way of being. And yet they remained together and they did some of these great things despite the times where it was hard. And I think about how that looks now. So often in American churches in the modern times, when we get upset with something that the church is doing or with somebody in the church, we like to pick up our toys and go home. And we go and find different churches, and church hopping has become the norm for people whenever they come into something that is not pleasant. That rather than church being a family, a community that you want to be a part of, that you remain a part of even when it's difficult, people start seeking the easy way out. And they stop attending and they stop engaging. And soon, the churches begin to look like nothing more than social clubs. Social clubs that choose to get up early on Sunday morning and listen to some guy or woman speak for an hour, sing a few songs together. And they're not as compelling. Some do great work still, but all in all, churches have kind of lost their identity as we stop really loving each other and instead just looked at sometimes our obligations that we feel to just be there at church every week, or sometimes it's about the networking or whatever various reasons that we choose to go. And I think now more than ever, we need to remember that this really is a discipline, that this really is something that we have to practice, that we do have to almost force or motivate ourselves to actually be a loving and beloved community, to actually be a people that build those relationships beyond just a Sunday morning. And until we are the people that can do that, then we're going to find ourselves struggling to get more people to be a part of it. Because there's nothing compelling to be a part of. And when we are doing our best and we are that loving community, that people naturally want to join, because we begin to fill that hole in their lives, that gap for something that means something, for a place to belong, and for a place where they feel like they're accepted for who they are, and where they can enjoy the other people that are there, and enjoy the time that they spend together. And so, as we get ready for the celebration of Christ and His victory that we will come to at Easter, perhaps we should take some time to not just focus on our prayer life and the time that we spend with God, but maybe we should begin to think about the ways that we spend time with each other, the ways that we could be a better community at loving one another, at finding ways to play together and not just worship together. To find more ways that we can enrich each other's lives through our various gifts and graces and talents and our treasures, and the way that we can share what we have. So, as an example of love to the world. Because if we were to start adding these things in, if we were to start getting really good at being a people that live together, that celebrate together, that are there for each other in hard times, if we were to get really good at being a people that band together and are knit together like a close family, and then we were to be able to still open that family up and invite others to join and to feel that same love and that same connection, then we would begin to transform the lives around us. And we would begin to pull them in to the family and to Jesus because of our love for each other. And that's really all Jesus was talking about in John. That it's when we treat each other at our best, when we find ways of doing that and making time for each other and loving each other, even when it's hard, then we set an example for people that inspires them, that helps them to know that we will make time for them, and we will love them even when it's hard. And that's something people want to be a part of. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we ask that you would help to knit us closer together, that you would help us to be as connected as you are, Father, Spirit, and Son. That as your people, our lives reflect that which is in heaven. May we be a force of change and a force of love in this community. May we learn to practice the discipline of loving, so that even when we disagree, even when we feel like we have no time, even when the world seems overwhelming, we realize that we do have time for each other, that we need each other, and that we grow, and that we are given life from the time that we spend with each other. Help us to fully embrace the life that you have prepared for us. Help us to live into the fullness of relationship that you designed into our creation, into our being and our fibers. Lord, you made us social creatures for a reason. Now may we learn to practice and live into who it is that we were meant to be.